What's up, duelists? This last weekend, YCS Pasadena and over 300 people showed up to play in an Edison side event, which is insane. That's so crazy. My only complaint about this is that the staff was a little bit underprepared for how many people they'd have to have Edison side events out the ass. I mean, the line was crazy. It was so long. I had to wait in 30 minutes just to sign into an Edison side event, which, hey, I'll wait in line. I don't care. As long as I get to play Edison, I get to win this beautiful map. Of course I won my side event, of course I had to do it to him. I had to win this beautiful light and darkness dragon map. Oh, of course, leave a comment, like, all that kind of stuff. You guys know. I'm going to show you the deck. I'm going to tell you a little bit about the weekend. It was my very first YCS. I'm very excited. As you can tell, I can hardly speak straight. It was an absolute blast, an absolute power force of a weekend. First things first. I got to shout out a few people. Spanx TCG for hooking it up with a 5-headed dragon, because I needed one of these in English. My 5-headed dragons are, of course, the beautiful OCG Starlight Rare and the beautiful OCG Ultimate Rare. These are the ones that I gotta use, when I'm playing the game. But I needed an English one because for some reason, Time Wizard formats don't let you use OCG cards. Konami, get on that. Fix that. We should be allowed to use OCG cards in Time Wizard events. There's no reason why we shouldn't be able to do that. And then, of course, I got to shout out the Macro Show. Definitely check out his YouTube. He is a very powerful Edison duelist. I'll leave links to him in the description below. And he hooked it up with the Starlight Road and some Book of Moons so that I had English copies of those for the event. I'm not going to be showing you those ones ever again, though, because they're hideous. We are going to be talking about this super sweet dragon list. Very fire. YCS Pasadena, man. Great weekend. Okay, first things first with the monsters. Well, I guess we should talk a little bit about the design of this deck. The design of this deck is something that I've been working on for a very long time. I really like this deck. I think the dragon deck is good. I think it's like one of the best decks in the format. I have talked a lot about it with a lot of the other top players. This version is the result of some conversations that ProStorm and I had recently. If you guys know ProStorm, he's incredible Edison format player. And these are just some of the conclusions that we came to with regards to the metagame. I'll explain all the choices. Let's just get into it. First things first, you gotta have 2 Totem Dragon. So this guy, he's a little bit overpriced. Konami, get on the reprint. People would buy a set with Totem Dragon. I mean, it's a $40 card for no reason. This card is sick, very powerful. This whole engine, we'll talk about it in a second. 1 Exploder Dragon, triple Mass Dragon. This is kind of like a little mini toolbox engine. These cards, they let you stay in play, they let you play through Bottomless Trap Hole, they help you remove some threats in the case of Exploder Dragon, and they help you double tribute dragons under Royal Oppression in the case of Totem Dragon. So these cards, very strong. They are 6 dragons that you can normal summon that you can banish later for Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. I think mathematically, the number of normal summon dragons that you need that you can banish for Red Eyes is 9. I think if you're playing less than 9, then you're going to have Brick on Red Eyes, actually. So I think you need to cut a Red Eyes if you're playing less than 9 normal summon dragons, which kind of defeats the purpose of the deck, if I'm being real. Let's be real. This deck is a burn deck. It is not an aggro deck. It is not a combo deck. It is not a control deck. It is not any of those things. It is a burn deck. The way this deck wins. Okay, let's talk about the rest of the monster lineup first. We'll get into that though. Triple Red Eyes Wyvern. These are the other 7 through 9 copies of dragons that you can normal summon to banish for Red Eyes. So I think you need at least 9. You can play more than 9, but I think 9's a good number. Okay, and then of course you got to play the big father, Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon, pre-errata in Edison format. Card is disgusting, not hard once per turn. You can summon 3 of them. You can go off with it. It's absolutely insane. And then, of course, the other father of this deck, which is Kwakimeru Drago, probably the MVP. This is your combo kill. Right here. Red Eyes, summon Drago, 4,700 direct. Next turn, Red Eyes, summon Drago, 4,700 direct, GG. Your opponent loses the game. And they can't stop it with Vader. They can't stop it with Gores. They can't come back with Dark Arm Dragon. They can't come back with Judgment Dragon. They can't do anything. They basically can't do anything. It is a 2-turn OTK, if that makes sense. 2-turn, 1-turn kill. Exactly. That's how it works. But you lock your opponent out on their turn. So this is the big strength of the deck. It's like a combo burn deck. And I treat these cards kind of like burn spells. You try to find a position where you can resolve these burn spells. And then once you've resolved them twice, you win the game, more or less. And then to round out the dragons, of course, I've got 1 White Knight Dragon. This is the best boss monster dragon you can play in this format. Can't be targeted by spells or traps, immediately negates them. So that means no brain control, no Book of Moon, no Icarus attack, no D-Prison, no Mind Control, no Enemy Controller, no Soul Exchange, no Phoenix Wing Wind Blast, no Regeki Break, no Karma Cut, no any. This card is insane. It stops everything. It sticks in play. It's very difficult to out. Your opponent needs to either special summon a monster and sack it for Caius to out this guy, or have like a Raikou, or have something like very specific to out this guy. There's a few other ways we protect it later on, which I'll get into, but basically they need very specific ways to deal with this card once it's in play. It is the best thing you can tribute summon off of Totem Dragon. The stat line 3000 is very important. Being a water is very important because you can bring it out with Red Eyes while you have Drago in play. So it's not a light or a dark that you can sort of conflict your sort of way there. It's a must play. It's a must play. And the second effect, where it can redirect attacks, actually does come up quite a bit. I had a game where I had a Mass Dragon in play, and I had a White Knight Dragon in play, and I was at like 300 life points, and I was playing against frogs, and I had 2 back row that were dead. I had like Typhoon and something else. I'll get into that in a second, the back row that I was playing. But I had 2 dead back row, and I summoned the Mass Dragon. I attacked my opponent with both to try and bait him into attacking my Mass Dragon for lethal, and he did, and I was able to send my dead Space Typhoon to redirect the attack into the White Knight Dragon, and totally blew him out. It was a really, really sick moment where your opponent just didn't read the card, basically. And to round out the monsters in general, these are all the dragons that we're playing. To round out the monsters in general, the best monster in the format is DD Warrior Lady. This is the best monster in the format, next to maybe Dark Arm Dragon. This card is so good. Well, I shouldn't say format. I should say metagame. The best monster in the metagame right now is DD Warrior Lady. This card does everything you want it to do and more. It banishes all of your opponent's threats. It banishes all of the cards that this deck normally deals with: Spirit Reaper, Colossal Fighter, Armor Master, things that are being backed up by Honest and Kalut. This card gets through those. I had a game versus Lightsworn in the finals where my opponent went turn 1 Summon Lumina and phase Mill Wolf, and I was pretty sure he had Honest too. So on my turn, I drew, I summoned DD Warrior Lady, I went attack Lumina. So no matter what happens here, I'm getting my 2 for 1 back. I'm either clearing the Lumina and he's not spending the Honest, or he's spending the Honest, he's losing 2 cards for my DD Warrior Lady, or I'm clearing the Lumina, and his Wolf attacks my DD Warrior Lady, and I'm clearing both for 1 DD Warrior Lady. This card helps break up a ton of situations that are normally very difficult to sort of slog through. Against zombies, they start off with Pyramid Turtle, with Goblin Zombie, that kind of thing. They're able to tutor their powerful cards if you just attack over it with any dude, but if you attack over it with DD Warrior Lady specifically, you're able to banish the Recruiter, you're able to banish their tutor, cut them off of their engine, turn off live hands, banish heroes, keep your opponent off Miracle Fusion, banish waters, banish big synchro monsters. This card is insane. I would not play any less than 3 in this deck. And the best part about it too is normally you can't play dragons in this deck because it would conflict with Totem Dragon's graveyard effect. But DD Warrior Lady doesn't go to the graveyard. It gets banished. So it does everything you want it to do for this deck. It is the perfect glue that for some reason I had been overlooking for years of playing this deck. And now, upon revisiting it, I was talking to ProStorm about it. I was like, we should start playing a couple copies of DD Warrior Lady. And ProStorm was like, fuck that. Play 3 copies of DD Warrior Lady. It is so good. This is like one of the best cards in the format, in the deck. Cuts your opponent off blizzards. Oh my god, this card is so good. I could go on. I could go on for days about why this card is so good. But we have to get on with the rest of the deck. So that's the monsters. Again, your combo kill is Red Eyes into Drago. Wait for another opening. Red Eyes into Drago. Game. That's your big combo kill. The other monsters, we'll talk about their utility a little bit more once we get into the spell cards. And then, of course, White Knight Dragon, the GOAT. Gotta have it. Gotta have it. Okay, spell cards, spell cards, spell cards. This is a big part of the deck. Obviously, I mean, Future Fusion. Let's be real. In Edison format, when you activate Future Fusion, you send the materials. You send the materials. It's not as a cost, so if they do Chain Typhoon, it does stop it. But you send the materials as part of the effect immediately, that turn. So this card becomes Painful Choice. Literally, it becomes Painful Choice. Usually, when I activate this card on the first turn of the game, and I get this question a lot, is like, what do you send off Future Fusion? In Edison format right now, I think the best turn 1 send is some combination of 2 Wyvern, 1 Totem, 1 Red Eyes Darkness Metal, and then 1 utility card. This or triple Wyvern, depending on your hand. So depending on what you have in your hand, you might want to send White Knight, you might want to send Drago, or you might want to send the second Totem. If I have 2 big monsters in my hand, I'm sending the second Totem. If I have one big monster in my hand, I'm sending the 3rd Wyvern. If I have a Drago in my hand, I'm usually sending the 3rd Wyvern. The reason I like this setup the best is because if, for example, let's say I send, instead of the 3rd Wyvern, I send 2 Red Eyes. And then end phase, I banish 2 Wyverns and I bring out 2 Red Eyes. First off, I have to summon them in defense position, because if my opponent has Brain Control, it automatically clears both my Red Eyes and I'm out both my Reborns, and I've lost 2 of the best cards in my deck, which I need to combo kill my opponent. So that kind of sucks. That kind of sucks. Additionally, if they just have one out, right, they're still like putting me in a really bad spot. Like let's say they have like Brain Caius, you know, like that sucks. I don't want to do that and then just be in a bad position. Like I don't want to activate Future Fusion and basically be in a bad position. I think the best play is to send 3 Wyverns, 1 Totem, and 1 Red Eyes, because if, for example, I banish 1 Wyvern, I special summon Red Eyes in the end phase, this is so much more resilient. I have a Red Eyes, I have 2 Reborns for the Red Eyes, and I have a Totem Dragon. Next turn, I can use the Red Eyes, get a +1, special summon back the Wyvern, poke with the Wyvern, force their back rows with the Wyvern, and force the opponent to spend resources on a card that's going to give me value from the graveyard. So I think this setup is much more resilient. It's better against brain control because it means you can summon the Red Eyes in attack position. That means that they can't like Yugioh over Red Eyes and take it, which is something that happened to me when I summoned 2 Red Eyes before in the past. This is generally what I send off of Future Fusion. If you're playing against certain matchups and you need Drago and you need White Knight access, then you can send those too. It just depends on the circumstance, but usually my go-to send is triple Wyvern, Totem, Red Eyes Darkness Metal. You guys will get it when you play the deck. You'll understand it a little bit more. Future Fusion, best card in the deck. This card is insane. I don't know why it was legal for so long with this errata. It makes you want to play Upstart Goblin, right? It makes you want to play Upstart Goblin. But when we were talking about, we're like, when you activate the second Upstart Goblin, it ruins your combo kill. It ruins your combo kill. If you have Red Eyes, Drago, attack, 47, second Red Eyes, second Drago, attack, or same Drago, it doesn't fucking matter, attack, that's 9,400 damage. That's not 10,000 damage. So the second Upstart Goblin you activate, it ruins your combo kill, and it ruins your game against a lot of decks. Aggro matchups, they take advantage of it. And then on top of that, you draw into these cards, you draw into Totems and Wyverns. You're playing 5 Wyvern and Totem total, and Mass Dragons as well. Like cards you don't really want to draw multiples of because they're not that great in your hand. These cards are not that great in your hand in multiples. Having 1 or 2, totally fine. Having multiples, get that shit away from me. But you also don't want to cut these cards because you need this minimum number for your Red Eyes to be able to be summoned from your hand and to make your Future Fusion as good as possible. So instead of playing Upstart Goblin to draw into your multitude of bricks and potentially see your Future Fusion a little bit more consistently and ruin your combo kill additionally, we decided to play Double Gold Sarcophagus. This is a card that is in and out of this deck, but I think with the DD Warrior Ladies, it is an auto include. DD Warrior Lady helps buy you the time you need against most aggressive threats that punish you for activating a Gold Sarcophagus. Like if your opponent goes like Shuro Whirlwind and they search Blizzard or whatever, if you just set a DD Warrior Lady, you're fine to wait the 2 turns out for Gold Sarc. It's going to suck, but your Gold Sarc will end up resolving. You'll be able to grab whatever it is you searched off of, and then you'll be able to hopefully make a powerful pushback thanks to this DD Warrior Lady. Because we're on 3 copies of DD Warrior Lady, Gold Sarcophagus becomes a ton better. It resolves a lot more often, and it grabs you exactly the card you need in the circumstance, which is more often than not going to be Future Fusion. But a lot of the other times, you can search for things like some of these other spells, which I'll get into. Heavy Storm is one of the cards that I search off of Gold Sarcophagus a lot, and Brain Control. These 2 spells, got to play them. I think these are the best cards in Edison format that aren't Future Fusion. Best spells that aren't this card. This card sweeps all the back row. Sometimes your opponents get greedy. You just play this and you win the game. And this card is a burn spell, basically, in this deck. It just kills your opponent. Imagine if you had a spell card that was like, blink your opponent's monster and deal them 3,000 or something. That's what this card does. And in this deck, because we're playing a burn combo deck, this oftentimes acts as the second half of your burn combo. So if you go Red Eyes, Drago, attack, deal 4,700, the next time you can Brain Control and then kill them from that. So this oftentimes can just be the second half of your burn combo. And then for the remaining spells, I played 1 Typhoon, spot removal on the back row. Gotta have it for Royal Oppression. Gotta have it for Whirlwind. I played 1 Smashing Ground. This card's very important. Because of the way I'm playing the deck, because of the way I am sort of positioning myself, you gotta have 1 extra way to clear out things that complicate you shoving damage. Things like Armor Master, Colossal Fighter, Spirit Reaper, Dupe Lock. You need to clear them out in the main phase before you've gone to the battle phase. And then you need to shove damage that same turn. And that's what Smashing Ground accomplishes in this deck. This could also be another copy of, or this could also be a copy of Lightning Vortex. I haven't tested the differences between those 2. Lightning Vortex discard does come up. This deck doesn't net card advantage that easily. Doesn't net card advantage that easily. You're not going to want to play a grind game with this deck unless you specifically open Future Fusion. You really just want to play aggro mirrors with this deck. So just try to burn people out. Well, not burn people out, but you get the idea. You get the idea. And then the last 2 spell cards are Double Book of Moon. Best card in the format. That's how I feel about these spells. These spells are like some of the best spells in the format. Like Smashing Ground right before Edison, a lot of people don't know this, but this card was limited to 1, the ban list right before Edison format. This card is very good. Is very, very good. At the time, a lot of people considered it to be one of the best tech cards you could play. It just clears a threat, lets you shove for damage, lets you simplify game states. It forces your opponent to play defensively in a way that they maybe don't like. It's not the best card against some decks. Against Quick Draw, it's pretty bad, but it does clear Titania. It does clear Caius. It can clear a face of Hamster if you haven't been able to get over that for some reason. So it does have a lot of applications. It does have a lot of applications, and I think playing 1 over the 3rd book is a solid choice. Okay, that's it for the spell cards. Pretty straightforward stuff. There aren't that many good spell cards in Edison format, so you just got to play the best ones and pray. Now on to the traps. This is where things get very, very interesting. This deck so far, everything you've seen from this deck, very normal summon reliant. You're only able to play 1 monster per turn, more or less. Even if you normal something and you banish it for red eyes, if the red eyes get stopped, it's still technically only 1 play. Or if they stop your normal, then you can't summon the red eyes. So you're very, very restricted to your normal summon. And I think the dragon decks in this format need to play trap cards just so that they can play more than 1 card per turn without relying on gimmicks like instant fusion or other stuff like that. I think the best way to play this deck is to play trap cards. So if I summon a dragon, it gets stopped, I can at least set a couple trap cards and I have more than 1 play in my turn. Obviously, spot removal, bottomless trap hole, triple D prison, gotta have them. I think spot removal gets a lot better in paper Yu-Gi-Oh! As opposed to dueling book, and this is an observation that I was kind of trying out in the event. I had a moment against Frog Monarch player where my set cards were 2 D prison, 1 bottomless, and 1 blank. I think it was like I don't remember what it was, but it was a blank. So I had these 3, and I had 1 monster in play. I had a Wyvern in play. My opponent goes Soul Exchange, target the Wyvern. I pick up my 2 D prisons, and I look at them. And I just look at them for a second, and I set them back down, and then I say, okay. So what I've told my opponent with this little micro interaction is that these are potentially cards I could have chained. That's what I told them, these 2D prisons. Neither of these cards are cards I could have chained. So when he sacrifices my Wyvern, summons the Monarch, now instead of going after the 2D prisons, he's now looking at the cards I didn't look at, which was Bottomless Trap Hole and the blank. Took or turned a situation where I have a 25% chance of him hitting a chainable back row and turned it into a 50% chance. And he did end up hitting the Bottomless Trap Hole. I hit it, I reversaled him, and killed him the next turn. So that's literally exactly how you can do stuff like that in paper Yu-Gi-Oh! That's why I'm not speaking straight. All right, YCS Pasadena, it's got me a little shook. It's got me a little shook. Seeing that many people is pretty crazy. It's not something I'm used to. But yeah, basically you can bluff in real life. You can't really do that on Dueling Book. You can't really like pick up a card and look at it on Dueling Book. You can't check your graveyard on Dueling Book. You can't shuffle your hand or like do certain things, like look at a certain card in your hand on Dueling Book. You can't convey body language. And so many cards change when you can do that kind of thing. I think D Prison is definitely one of those cards. This is one of those cards that gets a lot better when you can make bluffs. Okay, other removal spells, Torrential Tribute and Mirror Force. These 2 cards, very, very powerful. You have to play them in Dragons. Like I said, you struggle to get card advantage, and these 2 cards provide you with outlets to get card advantage. They also provide you a way to stunt aggression in aggressive mirrors, and they also provide you with outs to certain situations that normally fuck you. Most notably, Torrential Tribute. Against frogs, they'll go into the dupe block a lot of the time, and in order to continue playing, if they don't have Unifrog in their deck, they'll have to sack a Treeborn for a Monarch. Once they do that, if they Monarch target something, you can chain Torrential Tribute, and at the very least, you're getting a 3 for 2. Because Caius is Chainlink 1, or their Monarch is Chainlink 1. I'm assuming it's Caius in this circumstance. And then Chainlink 2 is Torrential Tribute. You pop their 2 dupes, you pop their Monarch, you set them back a whole turn, you clear their whole board, and then they don't get the dupe searches, the dupe add-backs, because they activate, or they didn't activate, they were destroyed Chainlink 2 or higher. So they actually missed timing because it's a when you can effect instead of an if you can effect. So this card is very important against Frog Monarchs. You can't play the deck without it. Unlike other aggro decks like Black Wings where they can cut Torrential Tribute because they have Icarus attack and whatnot, this deck you definitely cannot cut it. This deck is very important. If you do cut it, you have to play something like Burst Breath, but I think that that's just like straight up worse than this card. So you definitely need to play it. And then the last like sort of removal spell is Solemn Judgment. I usually like to save this for my opponent's back row, stopping me from going for my OTK. That's usually what I like to save it for. But if you do have to Solemn Judgment a threat, like Solemn Judgment a Blackwing normal summon, then you do what you got to do. You do what you got to do. Those are the removal traps. Other trap cards. Trap Dust Shoot needs no explanation. This card is busted. Wins you the game if it resolves. Call of the Haunted. This is another card that I actually side out a lot. I think this is one of the top 4 cards I side out of this deck. But like I said, you don't have a lot of opportunities to make 2 plays in 1 turn, and Call of the Haunted lets you do that. So this card speeds up your deck. It makes you more powerful, and unlike a lot of other decks, this card can turn into an immediate +1 thanks to Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon. If you bring back Red Eyes Darkness Metal Dragon with Call of the Haunted, you can priority activate and then bring back another monster. So Call of the Haunted is like a pseudo soul charge in this deck. It's not as good as a soul charge. It's a little bit slower than a soul charge, but it is very good. And then last but definitely not least, the last 2 cards in this deck, the best 2 cards in this deck, Starlight Road, bro. Starlight Road, this card is insane. And of course, I got to show off the OCG Collector's Rare Starlight Road. Is there a good angle on this? I don't know if I can get a good angle on this card. It's so pretty, though. Let me see if I can get a better angle. Is there a way to do this? I'm not editing this out. I'm not editing this video. You guys are getting the uncut version. It's very pretty. The card is pretty. There we go. Maybe that's a good angle. You can kind of see it. You can kind of see it. It's gorgeous. It's gorgeous. Unfortunately, not legal in OTS Time Wizard, but hey, that's what you got to do. Okay, extra deck, side deck. Let's get into it. Oh, no, I should explain Starlight Road. I'm getting ahead of myself. I'm getting ahead of us. I can't even speak, bro. I can't even speak. I'm so shook. I see this cool mat. I see this ring light. I'm not a YouTuber, man. I'm not cut out for this shit. DD Warrior Lady, Starlight Road. Starlight Road protects DD Warrior Lady and White Knight Dragon. These combos really well with Starlight Road because a lot of the times, the only way your opponent has to out these cards is like Mirror Force Torrential. You don't want your DD Warrior Lady to get Mirror Force or Torrential because then it goes to your grave and it cuts off your Totem Dragons. So you need Starlight Rose to protect them. And then White Knight Dragon, of course, targeting removal, it negates. And then the Sweeper removal, you have Starlight Roads for. So it's really good with this lineup. I think Double Road with this lineup is insane. And then, of course, your main OTK combo is the Drago plus Red Eyes. That's 2 monsters. You're going to be playing into Sweepers every single game. You need to have Starlight Roads. I think you need to play 2 in this deck. I don't know. I don't think you can play less than 2, especially in a meta where Black Wings is everywhere. Okay, sideboard. So the sideboard I had for the actual event was just this. I had a Smashing Ground, I had a Compulse. I don't have a lot of English cards, okay? I didn't have what I needed to play the event to the fullest capacity of this deck, but honestly, it was a good thing. I think the main deck was so good and so tuned that I really should not have been changing more than 2 cards every single matchup. Against Frogs, I just brought these in over the 2 Spell and Trap removal. Against Lightsworn, I brought these in over some of the slower cards like Call of the Haunted, that is weak in Delilah, and I think I cut Heavy Storm against Lightsworns. Yeah, I think that's what I was cutting, Heavy Storm and Call of the Haunted. And then against Heroes, I was bringing these in against whatever. But yeah, I mean, I tested the deck a lot the night before against Blackwings, and I was testing it without the side, and I also tested it the day of against Blackwings. And I think I was 4-0 in matches the whole day before against Blackwings, and then the next day I won another 2 matches against Blackwings. No side deck. No side deck at all. They were siding, I was not, and I was able to win the matches against Blackwings without the side deck because I think the main deck configuration with the triple DD Warrior Lady, triple D Prison, double Road is so insane against Blackwings and Vayu decks that you don't really need too much. Like, you're basically pre for Blackwings, more or less. And then you can side in the Compulsory against Vayu and the Smashing Ground against Vayu if you really want to. If I was going to add more cards to the sideboard, I would definitely shore up some of the worst matchups, which I think it depends. It depends on what you think is a bad matchup. I would definitely bring in a Light and Darkness Dragon. This is a card that I've sided in the past. This card is great against Quick Draw. It's also great against stuff like X-Sabers, which can give you a hard time because none of the monsters are light or dark, so Drago doesn't really do that much. And then I would side some Dust Tornadoes just as a way to clear additional back row. I never really felt the need for these. Maybe against Vayu, they're okay to clear oppression. I would bring in some Cyber Dragons just for Machina. I didn't expect a lot of people to be playing Machina, so I just didn't have them. And then I would maybe side some Nox for Raikou because Raikou's annoying. The other card I would side that I actually don't own a copy of and can't really put on the camera for you guys, so I'm just going to show you this copy of Morbius. Morbius, the Sinister Syndicate, is Prohibition. This is a card that ProStorm put me onto. One of the worst matchups this deck has, and by one of the worst matchups, I mean it is such a bad matchup. It's Hero Beat. So against Hero Beat, what you do is you bring in Prohibition, you activate Prohibition, you name Elemental Hero Neos Alias, and the deck just falls apart. They can't Gemini Spark, they can't Hero Blast, they can't, like, their E-calls just don't do anything anymore. Their Honest are dead if you have Drago, because Drago locks out Cyber Dragon. They have no other light monsters besides Alias. It just destroys the deck. Plus, their standard removal, their standard spot removal is Gemini Spark, which is reliant on them resolving Alias. So they can't really remove the Prohibition if they can't play the Alias. So it just cuts off like 50% of their deck if you call Alias on Prohibition. So I think that was the plan that we were going to go with moving forward. For the extra deck, all you need are 5-headed dragons, you need some Stardust dragons, and you need some Chimera techs, and that's it. Don't even synchro, don't even need to do anything else. Of course, shout out to all the cool people I met this weekend. I got a chance to play Edison against a lot of the other YouTubers and YouTubers. One of the coolest YouTubers I had a chance to meet was Sweet and Chaotic Meatball. Very, very cool people. We were playing some Edison Saturday night, and yeah, I mean, it was just a great time. Got to see all of the other YouTubers. Shout out to all of them. Legends, follow me on Twitter if you want to see any more tweets from the event, any more stuff. I'll be tweeting out some of the other deck lists that did win the event. And then, of course, there's a brand new Discord in the description below. A lot of the other Discord members did win their side event as well. There are a ton of top Edison players in that Discord. So if you want to get advice from some of the best players who are winning these events, definitely join that Discord, and you can see the list that they were working with as well. There were some really cool ones. There was a Value Sworn deck that someone posted. There was a Gladiator Beast deck that someone posted. So yeah, join that Discord in the description below, and I'll see you guys in the next vid. Peace out.